Hello, everyone, once again. This is Rob, and welcome back to Media Awareness and another album review. This time, Dream Theater Parasomnia. And I'll be going over the packaging, the CD, and the songs in detail. But before I get to that, a reminder the fundraiser continues. For those of you new to my channel or unaware, I am a disabled individual and I use a motorized wheelchair slash scooter all day, every day for my independence, and I need your help. My insurance will not cover anything with regard to my scooter as they view it as a quote luxury item end quote, despite the fact that I am unable to walk whatsoever, in addition to being unable to use any other type of power chair, or even a standard wheelchair for that matter, as I only have limited dexterity in one hand. In addition to that, I do not have a backup scooter or wheelchair to rely on at the current time. So if my scooter does malfunction as it did a few months ago, I will yet again be a fish out of the water, a scenario I want to avoid at all costs. With that stated, below the title of this video and the description, as well as in a separate section below the information pertaining to the video itself, I have a spot fund link there. It is a fundraiser. It is easy to use and contribute. It takes a few seconds. You can even contribute anonymously, and any and all help is welcome. Even $5 or $10 can go a long way. So please do what you can. What I am endeavoring to do at this point in time is both continue the ongoing refurbishing of my existing scooter, which is from 2019, and we are now in 2025, so I'm definitely overdue for a new one. However, in addition to that, I'm also saving for a new scooter as well. That way, I'm never in a situation where I'm without an operational scooter. As alluded to a moment ago, a few months ago, my scooter did malfunction. The battery charging mechanism had failed entirely, and for roughly 2 weeks, I needed to be pushed around my home by family and friends, severely limiting my independence, but also giving me a long overdue wake up call that I need a backup plan. And that backup plan is to have a new scooter to use on a day to day basis. Um, and my existing scooter completely refurbished and waiting in the wings for me to use if necessary. And I feel that those are two logical plans to shoot for, and they are not unreasonable in my mind or in my opinion. So once again, the spot fund is linked below, and the all help is welcome. I'm still attempting to recoup the cost from the repairs from a few months ago in terms of the battery charging mechanism, and balance that out and continue saving as well as continue getting new parts for this existing scooter. So believe me, I really appreciate you all. I do want to extend the greatest thanks to those who have contributed thus far, in addition to those who plan on contributing, as your contributions have and will make a world of difference in my life. Thank you all. I love you all. If you are not yet subscribed to Media Awareness, please consider subscribing to my channel and becoming part of the Media Awareness family. I'd love to have you. Also, like and share. Let me know your thoughts on this album, Parasomnia. And if you have heard it, and if not, what is your favorite Dream Theater album or era for that matter? As we are going on into different eras now. Um, so, Parasomnia came out a few weeks ago. I actually had this CD on the day of its release. So one of my viewers was kind enough to have this sent to me from the Amazon Media Awareness wish list, also linked in the description. And I was very, very happy with that. Thank you very much. And this is what came. This is the CD cover. This is the back cover containing the track listing and other pertinent label information. When you open the CD itself, the case you have, or the digipack, I should say, you have um, this sort of uh, dark shadowing effect. Then, when you open up the album itself, the full digipack, you have um, the track listing on one side, and you have the disc in the center. I will caution you when you're taking this disc out, be very careful. Press on the center and pull on the sides where the tabs are to pop it out, and be cautious even then. Um, uh, it's in there very tight, at least mine was, and it was very difficult for me to actually get out without smudging it and without it breaking in half, which has unfortunately happened with digipacks of mine. So, just a cautionary tale, please beware. You do not want to ruin your copy of this album when you're unpacking it and getting ready to hear it for the first time. So just be cautious on that. But we're going to go through the track listing, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on each track, and then following that, I'll give you my thoughts on the album as a whole in terms of the actual production itself, the writing, the arranging, performances, etc. I should also point out that there is artwork on the inside cover of this and on the back as well. It is very shadowed and dark, however, so I wasn't able to really show that to you adequately, but it is there. And the cover itself is an interesting cover. I'm still uh, up in the air as to whether or not I really like this cover or not, but it is definitely reflective of the album in terms of its content. So let us dive into its content. Speaking of that, and we're gonna do so with the opening track, which is "In the Arms of Morpheus," which is an instrumental track of sorts, and it sort of kicks off the album. It's a decent intro. I didn't think it was really necessary personally, and I actually think it could have been linked to track two as one cohesive piece and not two separate tracks, as it's featured here. And it would also extend the length of the second track, which is Night Terror, which was the first single from the album itself as well. Um, Either that or start out the album with Night Terror as opposed to In the Arms of Morpheus. I think would have been a better choice, but yeah, it is what it is, and it is still a very strong opening. And whether or not you go with the Arms of Morpheus or track two, Night Terror, and speaking of Night Terror, we're going to move along to that since I'm already talking about it. And it was a song that I did react to on my channel, and I think it was the only song from this album that I was able to do a full reaction to, where that was not blocked by the record label. Inside Out Music, Inside Out Records, Sony, uh, and their division, I should say, of Sony, but um, I believe that one was not blocked. I could be mistaken. I know everything after that was, and it was quite a while ago since we've gotten that single. So But the single itself, I have some notes here. Um, and they are uh, fa- fantastic and should have been the first track on the album. Um, my thoughts on this song are all within my review of the reaction, I should say, to the actual single itself, which you could look for that on my channel. But really, it's a strong song. It's got a lot of classic Dream Theater elements and great lyrical structure, excellent musicianship, beyond what I think any of us were expecting from this particular comeback album of sorts. It's not really a comeback per se, but in some ways it is, and I'll get to that after I go through these tracks. So then we have track 3, which is A Broken Man, and that was also a single. It was the second single off the album. And it's a good song, uh, and it's not the best song on the album. It does have some great soloing and a blues feel to the guitar and keyboard solo at one point in the song itself, but it's once again um, uh, an okay song. If there is a weak song on this album, it is definitely A Broken Man. But it certainly doesn't mean that it's a bad song. It's not a bad song by any means. It is a good song, just not the best. Dead Asleep is musically it's flowing naturally, lyrics very compelling, and very moving. It tells sort of the story of uh, basically it seems like a gentleman, at least that's the impression you get, who has these bouts of memory loss, or perhaps even uh, multiple personalities, um, whereby he does things in his sleep and does not recall them. So he could be leading a double life within the context of a multiple personality disorder, or it could be more than that. So it's an interesting piece. I do like it a lot. Midnight Messiah was the third single off the album, to my knowledge. I also did a reaction up to that as well. However, it was a censored reaction, meaning I had to actually just use pieces of the song as it was blocked initially upon upload. That being stated, uh, it's a very solid song. Um, it has a very natural flow to it, um, very haunting lyrics, and very haunting overall feel to it as well. I really like that a lot. And moving on from there, we have track 6, which is Are We Dreaming? And Are We Dreaming is this sort of link. It's a linking track in a lot of ways, and it's just keyboards with whispers that um, are intended to really kind of tie the album together in terms of a concept. And I'll get to the concept following the album, following the track overview as well. So that was Are We Dreaming? And then we have track 7, which is Bend the Clock. And this one I have a lot to say about. Um, it has a real dirty sounding guitar intro with the lyrics being sung over that, and I really love that feel. Uh, it kicks into a mid-tempo piece and uh, very moving lyrics again, very deep lyrics, and um, has a fantastic guitar solo. The playing on this song is really top notch as a whole, but it has a fantastic guitar solo, and um, it's really uh, the most original guitar solo I've heard John Petrucci play in years, and it's just amazing what he does within the context of that solo. Um, and it's a great piece. Lyrically, it's great. Vocally, it's delivered great. Um, Musically, though, like I said, it's one of the best songs. And it's really considered the ballad of the album itself. And that's only because it's kind of sticks to the same arrangement throughout the song itself. And for the most part, the same tempo, with the exception of the intro part, which gives you the sense that it's going to be slower than it actually is, but it's mid tempo. And um, what really also impressed me about this track is at the end itself, we get the classic fade out. We don't have a definitive ending. And while the song probably could have benefited from a very bombastic ending, I actually prefer this classic fade out to such an incredible song. It really adds to it, in my opinion, at least from my perspective as well, in terms of a really uh, original composition and going with the old school fade out. It really impresses me, and I love it. Um, and then we have the final track on this album, which is the Shadow Man incident. And this song, or piece, I should say, because it is a longer track. I'm not sure really how I feel about this piece. It definitely has some callbacks to Metropolis Part 2 and Part 1 in terms of the intro section. Um, it does have some fantastic piano and guitar work in terms of the solo mid track itself. And um, it goes into uh, a what I will consider a classic Dream Theater guitar solo for the outro itself. Um, and then we have some sound effects at the end of the album, and at the very end itself, we had the lines "Wake Up" being spoken, similar to that we heard on Metropolis Part 2. So, Parasomnia by Dream Theater. Um, the concept of this album is that sort of state between dreaming and consciousness and deep, deep sleep. That sort of in between place that we all visit at one time or another, where we experience different things and different events. And we could swear that when we wake up that they are real and that they did occur. When in fact we consciously are aware that for the most part they are a dream, either that or they are occurring in another reality entirely, depending on how you look at things and astral projection, etc. But on this album itself, this is a solid album. I will say that. Um, the Dream uh, concept is what really links each track to the next. That is the sort of concept of this album. There isn't an overarching concept to the album itself other than each track being sort of a separate individual's dream, if you will. And that's what I got out of this, at least. There isn't an overarching, like Metropolis Part 2 concept to this. It's more of just individual tracks linked together by a singular um, concept, and that is dreaming itself. And those fine lines between dream and reality, and deep sleep as well. So you have that. But at the end, you have this sort of harkening back to Metropolis Part 3, which had me wondering when I was listening to it, well, is this saying then that this is Metropolis Part 3? Which obviously it is not. But it has the reference to Metropolis in there. I think on one hand to really kind of get fans psyched about the album itself and the lineup of the band, and um, also to sort of bring things full circle. And what I mean by the lineup of the band and bringing things full circle is this album marks the return of founding Dream Theater member Mike Portnoy to the band. So the lineup now consists of James LeBray on lead vocals and John Petrucci on guitar, Jordan Rudess on keyboards, John Myung on bass guitar, and Mike Portnoy on drums. And uh, Mike has been off doing assorted other projects throughout the years while the band has continued onward with Mike Mangini on drums. And Mangini very graciously, as I've been told in interviews and seen, I should say, in interviews, as I haven't been fortunate enough to actually do any interviews myself, but I've seen enough interviews with the guys in the band to know that they basically said Mangini stepped down very graciously, allowing Portnoy to step back in as full-time drummer for this album itself and for the band itself. And uh, I think it's a very solid album. Like I said, it's a very good album. The structure is really good. The lyrics are great, as I stated. Uh, if this album has any downfalls, it is in the production area. And you know, guys, if you are a subscriber of my channel, you know how picky I am about production. And when I first heard the singles off of this album, I was, I don't want to say misled, but I was, I think, overly optimistic that when I heard the album itself, my opinion on the production might improve. And then initially I thought it was really a return to a nice classic Dream Theater production sound. But what we get on this album is a bit too much emphasis on uh, certain instrumentation in the mix being louder than uh, than it really needs to be or that it should be. In particular, the kick drum comes across as being overly high in the mix, the bass drum, for those of you wondering, for those nice double kicks. And while yes, it works very well, it's somewhat overwhelming in parts, and I think it's there to also overemphasize um, the fact that Portnoy is a fantastic drummer and that he is back. But we all know that, so there's no need to really overemphasize that. It's not saying that detracts from the content of this album. The playing is by far some of the best the band has ever done, and some of these songs are just fantastic. Um, Another thing that I did take note of was the fact that Jordan Brutus is using a lot more classic piano and classic organ sounds as opposed to synthesizers. And yet, while there still are synthesizer elements present on this album itself, there is more of the classic throwback to those um, other forms of keyboard expression, and I appreciate that as well. I also appreciate the guitar soloing and sort of just the sticking to the distortion guitar on the guitar, distortion effects, and the clean sounding guitar, and or the really dirty sounding guitar as well. Nothing really extravagant in terms of effects on this album that I could notice. Vocally, James LeBray is really giving his all, in my opinion, and he's giving a strong performance on this album. He's not overextending himself, as we've seen on some of the past albums, and he's not really um, uh, going beyond his register. He's staying within the confines of his voice at this point in his life, and it works in this album's favor. Uh, he could very easily have used studio techniques to really hit some incredible high notes, and he did not. So I appreciate that, and I think it works in the album's favor that he did that as well. John Myung playing some incredible bass lines and incredible bass work on this album, and you actually hear the bass a lot more on this album as well in terms of bass guitar. So I appreciate that in terms of the mix as well. If there was any complaints I have on the mix, like I said, it was just that the drums were they didn't sound right to me. Like the Portnoy era of Dream Theater has a certain drum sound that was really indicative of the band throughout his era. From, I want to say, Falling into Infinity, or even Awake for that matter, through Black Cloud's Silver Lining. Um, and it it was really something I was hoping to hear again and to hear coming back. But we have a good enough drum sound on this album and the drumming is by far some of the best Mike has ever done. There's no knocking his proficiency at the kit, and I've championed him for years um, outside the Dream Theater um, in his other projects, Flying Cars, Winery Dog, Sons of Paul. So I'm definitely a fan of Portnoy's drumming. I just think that the sound of the drums could have been a little different on this album, and perhaps even sounded more like the sounds he had gotten on Liquid Tension Experiments last uh, album, or even John Petrucci's last solo effort as well. Um, but with that stated, we have a solid Dream Theater album with the classic lineup that people really love, and I myself love, and saw this lineup live countless times. So I am excited that this album is out. I do apologize for the delay in this review. I really wasn't in a progressive metal, progressive rock headspace for the past several weeks since the release of this album. I've been listening to it daily to sort of give myself a feel for the album and take each song in so that way I can formulate opinions on each track, which is what you had a few moments ago when I went through each track. But uh, even the Are We Dreaming piece, which was keyboards and just whispers throughout, I don't think we even really needed that track. I think it was put in as not just filler, but also a reminder to some of the fans that this album is about dreaming, and sort of hammer that concept home to fans that might not necessarily draw that conclusion from the composition of the songs themselves. And it's not bashing any fans for not picking up on that, but I think that may be why that track was there. I think we could have easily gotten this album with 7 songs total, not 8, if it wasn't for that, or have that linked to a track. Um, as I mentioned with the intro track, uh, In the Arms of Morpheus, having that linked to Night Terror would have been ideal. But other than that, I have no um, negatives. This album is a strong album. Is it the best Dream Theater album? No. Is it a great Dream Theater album? Yes. And I would say, if I had to rank this in my Dream Theater ranking, uh, I would put this around Metropolis Part 2 and Octavarium, which are very high on my Dream Theater ranking list, which is also a video I done quite some time ago, but it was still relevant in terms of the discography at the time. So if you want to find that, it's in my videos. Just do a search. Um, but this album is strong. It is probably my second or third favorite Dream Theater album at this point in time. And I've been listening to it now for several weeks. We finally crossed over almost into March. We are 1 week away from the end of February. February is ending actually midweek, mid to late next week, and we are then crossing over into March. So I've been listening to this for almost a month now, and just sort of kind of gathering my thoughts. I didn't want to come out too strongly initially I wanted to really think about these songs, think about what I was hearing, the sound, the mix, and the mix overall is very good. And I like the fact that we're hearing more John Mayung's bass, um, and that it's not buried in the mix as it was on many of the albums. It just sort of blended in, and you really hear it a lot more on this album. And he's a great bassist, so he deserves to have that time in the spotlight. Um, and like I said, also you get some really strong performances vocally from James LeBray. You get strong performances from everyone, from Mike Portnoy on the drum kit as always, giving his incredible performances. Petrucci on guitar, blowing us away with some soloing that was unexpected. Same with Jordan Rudess on keyboards. This album is a great album. I highly recommend it, and I highly recommend seeing these guys live if you have the opportunity. I hope to see them again live at some point in time in the relatively near future, as it's been several years since I saw them last. I think the last tour I saw them for was Octavarium, so it's been quite a long time actually, and I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing them again soon. And as far as this album goes, definitely pick it up. You can listen to it on Spotify, but hold this in your hand. This is the CD. You have a booklet in here that I'm reluctant to take out because I know I will not be able to get it back in the sleeve with my dexterity. And so that's my unfortunate loss because I'm unable to actually look through the artwork that I'm sure is present in the booklet as well and sing along with the lyrics and as I listen to the album. But I will no doubt learn all these songs and be able to sing along with them with no problems at all in no time because I've listened to it now, as stated, for almost a month, off and on, pretty consistently though daily. And you have my thoughts, you have my opinions, and you have my overall review of Dream Theater's Parasomnia, marking the return of Mike Portnoy, founding member of Dream Theater, and just a phenomenal, powerful album. This is Rob with Media Awareness. I hope this review was helpful to you, the viewer, and I hope that you go out and pick up this album in your choice of formats. It's also available on vinyl and MP3 download as well. So do yourself a favor and get this in some physical form. And with that stated, once again, a reminder the fundraiser continues. Please do what you can. Any and all help is welcome. And I will see you all again soon. Have a wonderful morning, noon, or night, wherever you are. Take care. Bye.